Hello and welcome to Coffee with Jenny B. It's about conversations over coffee, community, connections, what brings me joy, and everything in between. I'm your host, Jenny Sacco-Bak. When you think about seasons, spring, summer, fall, and winter, and you relate them to colors, it's about what color palette looks best on you. Now, as you can tell, I'm wearing green. Green is one of my signature colors, partly because green goes well with my green eyes and my red hair. It's also part of my brand. And when you think about your brand, it's something that identifies you to the world. So Coffee with Jenny B is who I am, but it's not necessarily just about coffee. As I've mentioned, it's about conversations, community, and connections. So in my logo, you have green, there's a little bit of teal, a little bit of brown, just, for coffee, absolutely. So when you think about how you are representing yourself, it's important to understand what your colors are, and maybe not necessarily the colors that you like, but what colors really represent who you are. And it's all about your brand and how important that is. Now, when it comes to branding, of course, you like to make sure that you have photos that really capture who you are and, of course, wearing your brand colors. My guest today is someone who is very knowledgeable about that, and actually, she really represents her brand. Her name is Raez Argulla. She is a brand photographer. Please help me welcome Raez.
Hi, Jenny. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Of course.
All right, so let's get into it. What exactly is a brand photographer?
A brand photographer is someone who specializes in working with business owners, solopreneurs, really anybody who is the face of their brand, whether that's, they have their own business or maybe they're like a CEO. If you represent yourself or your brand or your company, you have a personal brand. And that's the type of photography that I specialize in.
Wonderful. Now, as owner of Raez Creative,
Mhm.
brand photographer, but what else do you provide as far as the creative part of it?
For sure. I mean, I provide a lot of different services. I love being creative, and that's kind of what I decided to brand myself with because I feel like I couldn't really narrow myself down to just being a brand photographer. It's definitely something that I lead with because it's the main thing that people, work with me for. But I also offer brand content creation. So, for people who need help with their reels, their B-roll footage, like really anything that they want to put on social media, along with photography. I also offer those short form video services.
Oh, good to know.
And actually, I also offer social media management on the side. So it's kind of like a little bit of everything, but basically, if it represents you and your brand, and if it's going to be on social media and you're using it for your marketing, chances are I could help you with that.
Okay, and that makes sense because rather than, having silo, I'm doing this or I'm doing that or I'm doing that, being able to do everything because it's really all related to branding. And it's
Mhm.
not just the photography and the colors and so on and so forth, but it's also your message or your key points. What exactly do you stand for? And having someone like you who not only takes the photos but also behind the scenes. Okay, so what exactly are you trying to represent and how can I help you find your voice, so to speak?
Exactly. I'm taking kind of what my clients are all about from their personality to their brand values to their mission and what they do as a business provider or a service provider and kind of wrap it all up into visual content.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, how did you get started in photography?
Well, it's kind of a long story, but I'll give
Okay.
you kind of the Cliff's notes.
Okay.
So, when I was a kid, my first obsession was fashion. I could literally be found on the playground instead of playing with recess and playing with other kids. I would sometimes go off into my own little corner with my sketchbook, and I would doodle, models with clothes and mannequins and like I don't know, shoes and bags and stuff like that because I grew up reading like fashion magazines and I just loved the fun of styling and just like the whole world was so glamorous to me.
Hmm.
And I kind of grew up with that and I wanted to work in the fashion industry. And I really thought I was going to be a fashion designer. that didn't quite work out. But when I was a teenager, I started a fashion blog
Mm.
based on all the thrifted clothes that I love to play with. And that was really formative for me because I learned how to photograph myself,
Mm-hmm.
play with clothes and style myself, and also my friends. I would kind of rope them in and get them to model for me for my blog. And I learned how to write and put it all together onto a blog. So it was like being my own media machine. And that's
Right.
really kind of where it all began because it made me realize that beyond just being a fashion designer, there are a lot of things you could do in that industry.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of opened up the world for me to explore that. And the strongest, I guess, skill that I came out from that, and I guess biggest passion was photography. Because I was like, you know what, this is so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can really create a whole scene, you could tell a story visually. And as someone who is very impatient, you get instant gratification when you take a good photo
Oh, yeah.
versus, creating an entire art piece that could take hours or days or whatever, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in high school, I kind of took that and I decided, I really want to study photography, but I still want to be in the fashion industry. So after high school, I studied vocational photography at Sacco-Bak.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure if they still offer this program, but back in the day, it was like a 9-month program, and they taught you everything you need to know about photography, like lighting, composition, um, all the good stuff. And from there, I applied to a fashion school in Toronto. It was my dream school,
Mm-hmm.
and I got in.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I ended up completing my degree in fashion communication, and it kind of rounded everything out because, I learned how to do photography and had been doing it for years as a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you know what, I'm good on that, but I want to learn what else there is in the industry. And I was like, maybe I could be a fashion photographer, as a career.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned in school, like the PR, the marketing, the digital aspect of it, and of course the fashion industry ins and outs. And I was like, this is really fun and glam. And I did a little bit of a stint in, like fashion and commercial photography, but then I realized it was really like missing some element of like personal connection.
Yeah.
It's quite a tough industry to be in. It's very competitive. Like it's all about making money and looking good, and it's very fast paced. And I love the glamour, but I really kind of felt like I was missing something.
Mm-hmm.
So when I eventually returned from Toronto to Winnipeg, I discovered brand photography during the pandemic.
Of course. Yeah.
A lot of businesses shut down, but a lot of businesses also opened up. And I kind of felt like, hey, there's something there. These brands and new companies need representation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm always looking on a new business's page and I'm like, where are the photos? We're visual creatures.
Right.
We want to get a little preview of what they offer, who they are as a brand. Can I trust this brand? Do I want to support them, give them my money, buy whatever they're selling? And I was like, well, maybe I could provide that. So that's the long story of how I got into brand photography from being really into fashion when I was a kid.
You know what? That's just fascinating hearing you talk about, all the different things that brought you to this point. And I love the idea about the fashion industry and also, going to Toronto and really embracing the idea of
Mm,
fashion as part of a brand.
yeah.
Now, as part of your role, I suppose, as a brand photographer, do you advise clients in terms of what colors they should be wearing or, maybe the styles of clothing that would represent their business?
Absolutely. Like I have a really thorough client process when clients work with me to prep them for their photo shoot.
Oh,
And
okay.
style is a big aspect and something that I never fully lost, fashion being my first obsession.
Hmm.
And there's a couple ways that I kind of approach it. Some clients already have such an innate sense of style that I kind of let them take the lead. If they already love, certain clothes and they're very knowledgeable,
Hmm.
if they're very knowledgeable about their brand, then I kind of let them do their thing and I kind of just act as a guiding hand and like give them direction on like, what, this will photograph really well, or this will really represent your brand.
Hmm.
It's a very collaborative process.
Oh, that's good.
But I also have clients who are like, I have no clue what to wear. I need you to tell me what to do. And I'm like, you know what? I've got you. Let me put on all my years of experience working with models and working in the fashion industry of like what looks good
Mhm.
and what will not only look good, but also represent them, right? So
Mhm.
we could talk about the colors that are already in their logos and their branding and maybe
Okay.
try to incorporate that into their photos so that, subtly it's there. We can also talk about, what flatters them or what
Mhm.
they feel really confident in. That's really important. to me and to them too,
Mhm.
to make sure that they feel really like camera ready.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting about that is, when you go shopping and you see something and it's just hanging there, and you
Hmm.
look at it, it's like, oh, I don't know if that
Yeah.
would look good for me. I don't know if I'd like that. And then somebody comes along and says, like, no, you should try it on. And then you try it on. It's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And I've actually had that happen where somebody
Mhm.
convinced me to buy something, and I'm like, I don't know. And now I love it.
Yeah.
But it's the idea of looking at something, and of course, when it's hanging
Hmm.
there, it has no shape. And
Yeah.
so once you put it on, so when you have clients that say, "I have no idea, I don't know what I want," do you help them go into their wardrobe and say, "Okay, let's see what you've got," and if they are some missing pieces about, maybe their color or whatever, do you go shopping with them? Do you recommend that things that they should be buying? How does that process work then?
Hmm. So I tend to focus more on the photography aspect. So I
Okay.
wouldn't say that I'm like a full-on stylist, although that's really fun. But I do have a few tricks kind of up my sleeves. So one part of it that I hope really guides my clients is my pre-shoot prep guide. So I
Okay.
have this document where I have gone in and created these outfits.
Mhm.
So little cutouts of clothing and like full-on outfit examples in
Okay.
this guide, to kind of give them a visual reference for like,
Mhm.
hey, if you want to look business casual, this is an example of what it could look like. Or
Okay.
if you want to look pr- professional and formal, we
Right.
also have this. And if you want to look more casual and like leisurely,
Mhm.
we also have some examples of what that would look like. So they're kind of just, I guess, templates so
Mhm.
that you can kind of see, okay, well, a blazer and a dress and with heels always looks good. So you can kind of take that and play with it yourself and hopefully kind of ignite your imagination for what's possible, because I'm not always trying to get my clients to like buy new things.
Right.
I try to encourage them to look at what they have in their closet first,
Okay.
because usually there's already a treasure trove there.
Right.
If you are someone who's very conscious of your brand, chances are you already have a great wardrobe and you
Mhm.
just kind of need to look at it with a new eye. Or yeah, exactly, look at it with a new eye, and then you can go in and see, maybe I could add a new blazer, or maybe I could get a special pair of heels just for this in my brand colors. That's really
Mhm.
going to elevate my outfit for the shoot.
Right. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have you there as a guide. And because again, even for someone who maybe has done it before, several photo shoots, every time you're going to a new photo shoot, it's something different. And there's
Exactly.
a, and there's a decent, different reason for it, because I know for myself, I've gone to several photo shoots, and every single time there was a different reason for me to do that.
Hmm.
And also when I think about it, because I remember a couple of years ago, I was a lot heavier than I am now. And so I look at photos from there versus the photos that I have now, and I
Hmm.
can't really use any of those photos because
Right.
it's a different me.
Fair.
Yeah. And so when you think about someone who wants photos that are going to be representing who they
Hmm.
are, what advice do you give someone in terms of, maybe they're looking for a certain look or certain,
Yeah.
um, I don't know, idea. So what can you give them in terms of advice to guide them in terms of finding out exactly what do they want? Because I'm
Yeah.
sure that you have people coming, they've got all these ideas,
Yeah.
but you have to pick one, right?
Of course. Yes, it's super helpful to go into a brand shoot with clarity around what it is you want to focus on, right? Because in this world, we have so many things and so many aspects, and everything's kind of coming at you all at once, especially with like the rise of like TikTok. It's like very overwhelming, and that can also bleed into our brand and our personal life and like how we represent ourselves online. So a part of my client process is narrowing that down. I do
Mhm.
actually have a brand questionnaire that I get my clients to fill out to help them think about their goals, whether that's for their business and what they want to represent, or their
Mhm.
personal brand and what they want to communicate. And we go through their answers together in a separate meeting, which I like to call the clarity call, because that's exactly what we're here to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we go into details and discuss them in depth. Because, for example, if you have a business owner who is providing a service like sugaring and
Mhm.
they want to really focus on their customer service. Okay, great. That's an amazing goal. How do we want to showcase that? And then we discuss in detail, the different creative aspects. And then we can also discuss, well, what would you wear in a customer interaction? Are you always wearing your scrubs? Or, do you meet with them before they even meet with you? And do you have a different outfit? Like these are the different little considerations that we like to talk about, and also some of the things that most people wouldn't think about when they first think of a brand shoot.
Right. Now, in terms of the clothes and the look and everything, you talked about sugaring. Do you ever bring like products into the photo shoots as well?
Oh, absolutely. Every client is different, and I always encourage props because to me, props build context. Like these brand shoots are not headshots. With a headshot, it's literally just cut and dry, background, and you just wear a top, and that's really it. There's
Mhm.
really no context, and it's just a first impression.
Right.
But with brand photos, they are different. They are meant to tell more of a story,
Hmm.
and it's never just one brand image like it is one headshot. It's like a series of photos.
Mm.
You're building a gallery, and when you look at your gallery, you want to be able to tell that there's multiple stories or at least different facets of who you are as a brand and a person, and also what you offer as a business.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
So to that point though, like so when you think about different stories, I'm
Mhm.
sure that you use their office or their business for one of the shoots.
Yeah.
And then depending on where else you want to go, do you confer with the client in terms of, okay, so we're going to take some outside shoots and we're going to go here, or we're going to go to a studio, or, because you want to have them sort of in the world, so to
Yeah,
speak, not just at their business.
exactly.
And that's something else, like, do you recommend or do you talk to them in terms of what they would like in terms of a few stories?
Yes, that's a great question because that's absolutely so crucial to your brand shoot. Like your location can make or break it. Like we did talk about props and how they can add little bits of storytelling,
Hmm.
but a location is like the set. Like if
Right.
you're thinking like a movie, it's like where you choose to locate your shoot is
Mhm.
so important. So for example, if you have a brand that's very wellness related or very outdoorsy,
Mhm.
like not doing it in a corporate office would make absolutely no sense. Like
Right.
you'd probably want to do, if you were going to do something indoors, at least something that had some greenery or
Mm.
really open lighting to show that you are, connected with nature or
Right.
grounded, right? Or the best thing would probably be to just go outside,
Right.
time it with a good weather and shoot somewhere really beautiful and meaningful to you.
Mhm.
And if you are a brand that has an office or a brick and mortar store, of course, shooting at your place of business would be like my number one go to
Mhm.
if you don't already have photos like that to show like what your business actually looks like and what you do there day to day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, location's super important because it shows what you're up to and sets the story for your entire brand.
I know that. Now, Winnipeg can be very unpredictable in
Mm,
terms of weather.
of
And
course.
even in the summer, you just never know what the weather's going to be like. And so you're hoping it's going to be a nice sunny day, and then
Hmm.
it's overcast and maybe rain. So, what are you looking for in terms of being creative about locations? What about the leaf? Because I know there's lots of greenery there and it's absolutely beautiful, or looking for locations that might seem a little sort of out of the way, but would provide that ambiance that you're looking for.
For sure. I mean, Winnipeg is so unpredictable, and I always keep that in mind when I'm suggesting locations to my clients because they're looking at me to lead the shoot, right? They
Hmm.
might have an idea of like, hey, I think the leaf would be perfect. And I'll say, you know what, for your brand, that's totally on brand. Or I might say, you know what, I don't really see the connection. Like, perhaps dig into deeper. Why do you want to shoot there? And then maybe we could
Mm.
find something closer to the root of their desire of why they want to shoot there and pick something more suitable if it wasn't suitable.
Right.
But yeah, I have tons of different ideas for shoots, and it really depends on what the client's looking for, budget wise, or maybe if the story that we're trying to tell. For me, a location needs to be versatile
Hmm.
because chances are we're going to plunk down and shoot a bunch of different scenes at one location
Right.
because a shoot goes by so quickly and you have limited time. Even if you have, a 4 hour shoot, it still flies by.
Hmm.
So choosing locations wisely that give you different spots that you could play around with and tell different facets of a story
Hmm.
to make it seem like you don't have the same backdrop for every single photo. It really adds depth to the stories that we're telling, and it also provides variety, right?
Hmm.
When you go through your brand gallery, you don't want to look at it and be like, oh man, like I wish we would have switched it up, or I wish there
Oh,
was, a little bit more variety here because I feel like all these shots are the same. I would
right.
hate that. Like,
Yeah.
we're trying to build a gallery for you that is very descriptive and rich in detail. So
Yes.
location again is so important to give you that variety.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, in terms of a location and changing it up a little bit, what is the recommended number of outfits that you want your client to bring? Is it, three or four, or is that too many? Because when you have a limited time to change, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, quickly go change into
Yeah.
something else. So, how many outfits do you really recommend?
For sure. That's a great question. It really depends. I kind of play it by ear, depending on the client.
Hmm.
If I have someone who's very experienced with doing photo shoots and they know how quickly time passes and they're a great quick changer, then I will push them to bring more outfits than what we need. So that way, if we have more outfits, amazing, then they get more variety. And it costs like nothing for us to plan that.
Hmm.
Um, but if they are kind of like new to shooting and I can sense that they are overwhelmed with having too many options, then I would definitely give them more of a doable number. So something like 2 outfits per hour.
Okay.
Very reasonable. If you're just starting, it's like, then you could take your time, you could change and you could take 5 or 10 minutes if you want to change from one outfit to the next. But even then, even if I do suggest 2 outfits an hour, I would still suggest, hey, maybe bring a couple of different jackets.
Oh, switch
So
it
you could
up.
switch up at least your top, like a little baby change. So maybe you get like 2.5 outfits or 3 outfits,
Right.
like just to switch it up.
Or even accessories, scarves,
Accessories.
earrings, etc.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in short, it does depend on the comfort level of my clients with how many outfits they want to bring, how comfortable they are changing quickly,
Hmm.
and also their goals of how much variety they want. Because I have some ambitious clients who are like, I want as many outfits as possible because I really want to pack in my options and
Oh
I
my
want
gosh.
to have content forever. And I'm like, okay, let me meet you halfway. We could do that. And this is what I would tell them to bring, like
Right.
maybe they can handle 4 outfits an hour or three, but it would all depend on how quickly they can change and also what space we're in. Because if we're in public,
Hmm.
are you going to change in your car? Are you going to change in the bathroom at Starbucks? Like, we have to be realistic as well.
And you know what? And I've actually done that.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, it's a rite
Yeah.
of passage.
Well, because you're shooting outside, and it's
Yeah,
like, okay, now we have to change an outfit. Okay, so I have to go inside a bathroom,
yeah,
quickly change and come out. It's
exactly.
not ideal, but
Yeah.
you do what you have
You
to.
do what you have to. And again, and like it takes it, you factor in all of these things. If you're changing outside, it's summer, you're sweating, it's not going to take you 5 minutes, it's going to take you 15.
Right.
So, how much time do we really have now, right?
You know what? That makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, in weddings, you have your bridezilla, the one that's taking over, and it's like, it's going to be my way or the highway. Do you ever have a diva who is very insistent, even though you've given her some advice? She's like, no, I want to do this. So, have you ever dealt with someone like that, and how did you handle it?
You know what? I think I've been lucky to not have any diva clients, but I will say for the record that I love a diva
Oh,
because a diva is a girl who knows what she wants. And working with
ah,
somebody who knows what she wants is, to me, a lot easier than someone who has no clue.
right.
Because you're trying to guide somebody who has no direction
Oh,
and
okay.
it's even more open-ended and you're like, well, what about this? What about this? It's like when someone asks you, what do you want to eat? And you're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then you're suggesting 5, 10 different things and they still don't know. And it's like, I'd rather work with a diva
Who knows?
who knows what she wants.
Yeah.
And like there can be difficult personalities, but
Mhm.
I like a challenge in that way. But if they
Okay.
know what they want, it's much easier to work with them and just kind of manage their expectations and be like, okay, I hear you. I know that you really want to look glamorous and like a jungle queen, but we cannot work with a live leopard, for example. Or like I really get that you wanna shoot at a high scraper, but I can't shoot you from outside the building.
Right.
Like,
Okay.
I'm just thinking of like crazy scenarios, but I've never worked with anybody who was really diva.
Okay. Yes, I understand what you're saying now, because they're coming in with exactly the idea
Yeah.
that they want, and your job is to guide them to get what
Mhm.
they want
Yeah.
without, going crazy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I love working collaboratively with my
Yes.
clients.
Hmm.
So no matter whether they are really headstrong and know exactly what they want, or they are a little bit more open, I've worked with a wide range. So I'm really down to collaborate and work with them. Like I like to think of myself as somebody who, yes, is the expert
Hmm.
of branding photography, and I've worked on all sorts of sets and all sorts of weather and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, they're the experts in their brand. So I still have to, take my cue from them
Right.
about what really represents their brand. So it's a nice back and forth that I like to build with my clients.
That's interesting. You talk about working collaboratively with your clients. Have you ever worked collaboratively with, say, another photographer, or maybe not necessarily working with them, but using their studio? Or do you work with other professionals to help complete your package or the shoot?
I can't say that I've worked with other photographers for brand shoots directly, just because really is a one-on-one type of shoot when I work with branding clients. It's not really like a wedding or an event where there's a lot to capture, and that's when you usually have multiple photographers capturing all the things going on.
Hmm.
Usually it's just me and my client, and sometimes I'll do my own videos for them, which is really fun. I'm like trying to do two things at once. But I would love to collaborate with maybe a videographer or someone to take the BTS content with me for my client. But outside of that, I've also worked with makeup artists, hairstylists, wardrobe stylists, all to support my client and helping them feel like the main character of their brand shoot.
Oh, I love that. I love that you can provide everything that you need, and it doesn't necessarily have to be all on you. So having others helping with you makes your job a little bit easier, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You can't do everything.
No, no. Although we try,
We
right?
try.
Now, if I were to get you to hire you as my brand photographer, what would you offer me in terms of all my options? So, what have you got in terms of all the different packages that are available?
For sure. I would say my most popular package would be my 2 hour brand shoot. 2 hours is a really good amount of time to get started because you're not rushed, but it is quick enough where, you can get in and out as well. Get on with your business because I'm assuming you are, busy with your business, your brand, you know. So that will provide, I believe, 45 to 50 photos.
Okay.
And that's a great chunk to start with because that's like 2 to 3 months of content if you're posting on your social media.
Hmm.
You could definitely use most, if not all of that for your website if you're building a new website. And you'll have extra left over for your like newsletters or marketing or anything like that. But I would say that's a great place to start if you're really serious about building your brand.
Okay, that sounds great. And then if somebody wanted more, if they wanted,
Mhm.
say, add-ons,
Yeah.
what's available for them?
Oh, absolutely. There's lots of add-ons. I currently actually offer BTS and B-roll included with my brand packages. So before, it would just be photography, but the requests have gone up for also including video because of, Reels and TikToks being so popular and
Mhm.
really short form video on a lot of platforms, even LinkedIn. So I was like, you know what? That makes absolute sense. You're already glammed up for your brand shoot. Why aren't we taking video? So I was like, let's just make it an automatic opt in. So now when you go and work with me, and we take your brand photos, we'll also take brand videos. So what that looks like is I'll be taking your shot exactly as we planned. Maybe you're by a desk and looking like a real boss. I'll also be like, great, we got the shot. Let me whip out my phone and take some video. So now you can be like typing or something.
Right.
Maybe you're like looking out at the window, looking really beautiful. And I'll also grab like a quick 5 to 10 second little clips of video. And it
Mm,
just makes such a difference because for my clients, like value is everything.
yes.
And you're now getting almost double the content, and with including video as well in these packages, you get your videos way faster than the photos. I have to
Yes.
go home and edit my photos of
Right.
you so that, it's curated, it's exactly what you need, and you have variety in your gallery. But with the videos, I send it to you in a shared folder or send it to you via text,
Hmm.
and boom, you can start using your videos and posting reels, posting stories, getting yourself and your followers hyped up for your new brand photos to drop. So that's an
Okay.
included service, but I can also offer my clients edited reels. So let's say that's great, you're all down for the videos, but you're not really much for editing
Hmm.
reels. Well, I've got you covered.
That's wonderful. Now, for those that may not be familiar with the different terms, so what is
Mm.
BTS and B-roll? What does that stand for?
Absolutely. I always get in over my head because I just love it so much. But BTS stands for behind the scenes. So
Oh,
what
okay.
that looks like is if we're doing a brand shoot, I will sometimes just set up a tripod kind of like 10 feet away and with my iPhone in there, and it'll capture us in the moment of
Oh,
me photographing you.
right.
And that way, like we both get content that we can show our followers. Hey, this is me on my brand shoot. And I'll be like, hey, this is my client during her brand shoot. So that's what BTS is really
Okay.
anything that you do behind the scenes.
Okay.
And for business owners, that could be you, maybe you're packing up orders
Oh,
and you
right.
just set up a tripod, in front of you while you're packing your orders, and you could use that and turn it into B-roll. So
Gotcha.
B-roll is like I guess like a film term, but
Okay.
it's really just like shots that are kind of capturing like I don't know. I guess I have to explain what an A-roll is first. Okay, an A-roll is a shot of somebody talking directly to a camera. Like
Okay,
that's scripted.
got
That's
it.
very much the main feature,
Okay,
A-roll.
okay.
But a B-roll is kind of like if you're talking to the camera, maybe there's a shot of you like stirring your coffee before you're talking to somebody
Oh,
coming on. It's like a
okay,
secondary shot
got
to
it.
like give context.
Okay,
Right. So
okay, I like that.
if someone is talking to you, if you're doing an interview in a park, the front on would be A roll, but a B roll would be people riding their bike across the park. You're
Okay.
adding like little clips to break up your main A roll footage.
Okay,
Yeah.
because otherwise just having a roll would be kind of boring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They would become talking headshots or
Ah,
talking head videos, which is very much like, hey, I'm teaching you how to do something and I'm talking right to my camera like this.
right, right.
I guess that could be A-roll, but when you create a video that has like, more context or more variety,
Mm-hmm.
you're splicing the A-roll with the B-roll to
Mm.
kind of give, depth and interest points.
No, absolutely. And it's all about the brand again, because
Mhm.
if they're talking about something that has nothing to do
Yeah.
with that whole thing. So in other words, you're sort of a director as well in
Yeah.
terms of saying, okay, so now we're going to do this and now we're going to
Yeah.
do that. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay. But that's good because sometimes we don't know. I mean, aside from the diva who knows what she's doing,
Yeah.
when you're usually working with, say, business people,
Mhm.
they really don't know what. And so they're looking for you to guidance in terms of,
Mhm.
okay, let's do this and I want you to do that. And then when they become a little bit more comfortable in that setting, they might have their own ideas in terms of things that they want to do. I love the idea that it's so collaborative.
Me too. It's my favorite part because I feel like with every client, we really do work in depth. It's not really surface level, which is why I love this line of work so much. Is because I feel like from the moment that I get an inquiry with my client and we, sign on the dotted line, it's really like a process of getting to know each other. They get to learn about my process, and I kind of take them under my wing and walk them through what it's going to look like, so that they're fully prepared by the time they're in front of the camera. And I get to learn about their business, kind of starting with them and where they started, but also their whole daily routine or their process for how they built their business, or maybe even if they have team members, I learn all about that so that we can incorporate all of these rich details into their final product, their brand gallery.
Oh, that's perfect. Now, if someone wanted to hire you for their brand shoot, how do they get in touch with you?
They can send me an email or they can go to my website and fill out my contact form. I would definitely suggest the contact form because there you can kind of talk about who you are, your business, and like what you're looking for so that we can get a really good head start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, do they find you on Instagram, or do you have a website that they can reach you at?
Yes, so I do have a website. It's www.raezcreative.com. And they can find me on Instagram. You can always shoot me a DM on there. I'm also at Raez Creative. And lately I've been really active on LinkedIn. So it's just linkedin.com/Raez Argulla.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Raez is Raez.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and we'll make sure that we put that in the notes for this segment.
Perfect. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Raez, for being here. I've learned a lot about your business and behind the scenes and everything that it takes to really make someone the star of their show, so to speak. And I really enjoyed having you here and talking about your business, and it was very informative. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm glad we could talk in depth about all the things branding.
Oh, wonderful. This has been Coffee with Jenny B for the You Multicultural channel. I'm your host, Jenny Sacco-Bak.